And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we're talking about an ESPN article that suggests that the Washington Commanders have a top 7 starting lineup heading into this upcoming season. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, this was recently posted here on ESPN. And so it is ranking 2025 NFL rosters, best projected starting lineups. And the Washington Commanders got the 7th spot here. And so this is written by several different writers who contribute throughout the section here. And so we're going to jump into this. And just to let you know the teams that were ahead of the Washington Commanders before we jump into what was being said there, you got the Ravens. They were first. The Eagles, the Lions, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Broncos, and then it was the Commanders. And so let's go ahead and jump in as they talk about the strengths, weakness, and then also to a player to watch here. And so let's start with the biggest strength. And so I thought that this was a little bit of a surprise, but they go ahead and they say that it is Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu, saying that the duo is too good to pass up. Wagner, is entering his age 35 season, but he has shown almost no signs of drop-off, ranking in the top 10 amongst off-ball linebackers in pass rush wins, tackles for loss, and QB hits last season. Also says that Luvu is the only NFL player with 250 plus tackles and 20.0 plus sacks over the past 3 seasons. He had 335 and 21 respectively. The duo combined to play 98.2 of Washington's defensive snaps last season. All right, and so, I don't know if it's the biggest strengths for the Washington Commanders, but they definitely are going to be some of the most important pieces for the Washington Commanders, especially on the defensive end. And so when you look at Bobby Wagner and just what he brings to the defense, I mean, he is Jaden Daniels on the defensive side of the ball. That's exactly what Bobby Wagner is. He's the guy that has to make the plays for this defense and make adjustments and things like that. And I believe there were times where, Coach Joe Wood Jr. had to trust Bobby Wagner to get the defense into the right set because they maybe couldn't get the call down to him in enough time or whatnot because, you have the no huddle situation and things like that. And so you really got to trust that Bobby Wagner is on the same page with Coach Joe Wood Jr. in making the call on the fly like this. And so I think that he did a terrific job there. And really, he's shown that throughout his career. You go back and look at what he did with the Seahawks when they were winners there. And I think that he brings that same type of winning mentality and just the ability to command the defense like he did then. And so just like it said, Bobby Wagner has not slowed down. I think that him and Frankie Luvu have definitely been a great duo for us in year one. And honestly, there is a chance that these guys could really have a solid year this upcoming year, probably better than this last season, because when you look at the pieces that have been added up front and then on the back end of the defense, defense is all about everybody going out there and hitting their assignments, because if you do that, you're going to either make the play or you're going to open it up for other players. And so when you add a player like Von Miller, and he's coming in with that pass rushing ability and just how he's able to disrupt an offense like that, look, they're going to have to send additional resources for players like that, which means that Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu could be clean to make a ton of plays. And hopefully in the running game, counting on the defensive line being able to just go ahead, get to the run gaps and get penetration here against these offenses. Hopefully they're able to keep Bobby Wagner, Frankie Luvu clean so they can make plays. And then hopefully they can also get some good assistance here from Jordan McGee, because I do think that there is a chance that he can really step up and play a huge role with these guys this season. He certainly has the athletic ability. Joe Wood Jr. talked about how they were installing a package for him until he went down with a knee injury. And so, look, the linebacking core could definitely be one of the bigger factors for the Washington Commanders. And so next, let's go ahead and jump into what else was was said here. And so talking about the biggest weakness. And so I found this interesting here. So talking about the safety, it said that it was a toss up, between the edge rusher and safety here. And so, I think with Von Miller coming over, number one, and then also two, with just the additions that the Washington Commanders have made across the board, I'm not so sure that the edge rusher is really what I'm worried about at this point in time. I think that more so the biggest weakness, really, that I'm thinking about for the defense as a whole is just going to be stopping the run. And that's something that we just won't know about until we get to week one. For all we know, this defense is equipped, it's ready to go, it's going to be ready for the run fits and everything else and be able to stop the run. We just don't know that yet. So I think that that's really the biggest weakness here. They point to the fact that Jeremy Chin is gone. They talk about Will Harris. They talk about Quan Martin and Percy Butler. And then they talk about just that their PFF grade was really not that high last season. But the safeties are not really what I'm worried about. I do think that that is a big part of what Coach Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn want to, do on the defensive end as far as their safeties, because they're definitely going to need a safety that is going to have to come up and run support and bring, the thump there. And you also have to be able to get back in coverage. I always think about what Dan Quinn had when he was with the Seahawks in Cam Chancellor. I think that that is exactly the type of safety that he's looking for every time that he takes on a team. And so can a player like that step up? We're going to find out. And so the next thing that they talk about here is the X factor here. And so this was interesting to me because this is the first time that I've seen that the corners were listed as X factors here. And so they talk about Marshon Lattimore, and then also too, they talk about Mikey Sainristil, and they talk about Trey Amos, and just them being able to lock up opposing wide receivers. And so the secondary is something that I'm super excited for this season. And I think that the secondary, man, it might be one of the biggest strengths, honestly, on the defense this year. And I've said this time after time. I think that the secondary is really going to reap the benefits here for what is going to happen up front, because I do think that this defense is better equipped to absolutely cause chaos on offenses because of the versatility that Joe Witt Jr. has. And I think that with Marshon Lattimore, you see a lot of just, okay, maybe the Commanders are looking to trade him. Should they be looking to move on from him? And I've been in the camp of not even going that route with Marshon Lattimore, because when he came over, he was injured. You have to give him the benefit of the doubt there. And then on top of that, he's learning a new system. He's learning the hand signals and everything else. And so now, you've heard from him at the mandatory minicamp and everything else. He feels he's got a lot of burst. He's been working on speed, all that stuff like that. And he feels great. And that's great, to know that he has that confidence coming in. And we know that Marshon Lattimore plays with that type of edge. And so, look, I think that he's going to return to that type of edge, that type of nastiness that he had with the Saints. You pair that with Trey Amos, who we've been seeing it so far, as far as what we've been seeing in camp and everything else, like the mandatory stuff and the OTAs. And I've been saying this before, we're going to have to see it translate when the pads come on, because that is going to be the biggest question here for all these rookies that we've been talking about and everything else. And so, it looks good thus far. And I do expect that the corners are going to be in situations now where Joe Witt Jr. can go out there, call blitzes and things like that, and trust that the guys in the secondary are going to take care of business and not only lock up receivers, but they're going to be looking to pick the football off. And so, it's interesting that they labeled them as an X factor here. I think that that is probably going to be one of the bigger strengths here for the football team. And so next, going into just what else was talked about here. And so they talk about the non-starter to know, and they talk about Luke McCaffrey. And so thought this was interesting too, in talking about Luke McCaffrey, especially when it comes down to the last part of this, where it says that he has a similar style and usage to Deebo Samuel. And saying that the problem here is that Deebo Samuel is on the team, and then just saying that, look, if Samuel gets hurt, then don't be surprised if McCaffrey succeeds as his replacement. And so, I will give him this. I mean, I think that with Luke McCaffrey, this is a guy that, does similar things to Deebo Samuel in the sense that he can catch the screens. He will be a guy that can work the middle of the field and things like that. But as far as like getting yak and stuff like that, I think that I'm going more with like a Jalen Lane type of player there for the yak and just being elusive after catch and stuff like that. But we'll see. I mean, with Luke McCaffrey, I will say this. I think that he has a real chance this season to take a step because of the things that he's been talking about. And it sounds like that for him, the game is definitely slowed down. Two, it seems like he has a better understanding of what it takes to be a wide receiver in the National Football League and understanding where he needs to be for Jaden Daniels this year. And I do think that, if Terry McLaurin is set to miss some time going into training camp, these wide receivers are all going to have to push up the depth chart, which means that Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, all these guys, Noah Brown, whoever, they're going to have to push up the depth chart. They're going to have to focus even more on the role because there's the real chance that, Terry McLaurin may not be there depending on how that situation works out. And so this is an opportunity for Luke McCaffrey to certainly step up and get some more, snaps, meaningful snaps out there at the wide receiver position to help this football team. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking about this. Do you think that the Washington Commanders do have a top 7 starting lineup heading into the National Football League? And so I think that this is a good thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean anything because we still have to win some football games here. And so I think the bottom line is this, that, you're getting all this national attention for the Washington Commanders. And we know that the veterans are set to show up here tomorrow on the 22nd. And I think the biggest question now for the Washington Commanders is what is going to happen to Terry McLaurin? Like, is Terry McLaurin going to hold out? Is he holding in? Do the Commanders get a deal done? Because I continue to keep saying this. If you get this deal done, you want to minimize these distractions because we know it's just so much national hype around this team. You want to be as focused as possible. And this is one of the things that you definitely want to knock out going into training camp. And so exciting times. Cannot wait to see this as we are finally at training camp. We're going to find out what is going to happen with these roster battles and everything else. Cannot wait until we get to week 1. We'll be covering all of it. And so anyway, you guys make sure that you like and subscribe. And as we always say, look, go Commanders. And we will see you on the next one. All right, peace.